Welcome to Still Moments Nursery Tutorials. In this tutorial we will be covering the most used vinyl neutralizing techniques to achieve a nice base skin tone on your reborn doll kits. Supplies you will need for this neutralizing wash are odorless thinners, Genesis Heat Set Paint Dioxine Purple 04 and Ultramarine Blue, 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch Maxine mop brush, sponges, paper towel, a mixing tray and a colour wheel. Using a colour wheel, try to match the colour of the vinyl to the colour on your wheel. In my case, the limb I'm using is a yellow-orange colour, so I need a blue-purple wash to neutralise the vinyl. Doing this will give you a nice pale flesh vinyl colour to start your painting. Start by adding odorless thinners to your mixing tray. I use a small squirty bottle to help avoid spills and to get the correct amount I need. Then using your 1/2 inch Maxine mop brush, apply a small amount of ultramarine blue paint at a time onto the tip of your brush and mix into your thinners. The colour you're wanting to achieve is a thin, watery, translucent colour. This will avoid the colour overstaining the vinyl and be hard to correct. And as this method can be repeated, it is best to have your mix nice and thin. Then add just a very small amount of Dioxine Purple 04 to your mix. This will help to neutralise the vinyl. Once you're happy with the consistency of your mix, test the colour against the colour wheel by wiping a line onto some paper towel to make sure you have the closest opposite colour. If your mix is too thick, add more thinners to your mix before you test onto your vinyl. Using your 1/2 inch Maxine mop brush, apply a generous amount of your blue-purple wash onto your makeup sponge and set it aside. Then refill your brush and apply a generous amount of your wash onto your limb. The more paint mix you have on the vinyl, the easier it is to get an even covering. If you start to see that you're getting paint lines on the vinyl, this may mean that your paint mix is too thick. Simply add a few drops of thinners to correct this. Using the sponge you applied paint to earlier, randomly pounce it all over the vinyl in a random pattern. This will help to spread the paint evenly. To avoid muscle ache and hand fatigue, I use a long brush handle inserted into the limb. You can also use a chopstick or anything else with a smooth edge. After you have finished pouncing the paint evenly, you will need to gather the paint from the creases using your dry 3/4 Maxine mop brush. Simply pounce randomly over the creases and anywhere else paint has gathered. Pouncing with your dry Maxine mop brush will help to spread the paint evenly as the thinners dry. Try to make sure you don't leave any paint build up in the creases, otherwise this will be hard to remove once you have baked the layer. Now apply the same technique to the arms. Remix your paint and reapply it to your sponge. Then refill your 1/2 inch maxi mop brush and apply a generous amount of your blue-purple wash onto your limb. If you start to see paint lines on your vinyl, add more thinners to your mix. Genesis paints are very high pigment colours and will stain your vinyl if the paint mix is too thick, and this will be hard to correct once you have baked your layer. The more thin down your paint mix is, the less chance you have of staining your vinyl, so try to keep your mix nice and thin. Now, using the sponge with paint already applied, randomly pounce gently all over the limb to help spread the paint evenly. If you feel you have too much paint on your sponge, simply dab it off onto some paper towel. Make sure you keep your 3/4 maxi mop brush as dry as possible. I do this by wiping it gently onto some paper towel. And just like you did the legs, you want to remove any build-up of paint from the creases, so gently pounce over any areas that have paint build-up. Now we apply the same technique to the head. Remix your paint and reapply it to your sponge. Then refill your 1/2 inch maxi mop brush and apply a generous amount of wash to the head. You may find that you will need to refill your brush a couple of times to cover the entire head, and remember, if you start to see paint lines, add more thinners to your mix. The more thin down your paint mix is, the less chance you have of staining the vinyl, so try to keep your mix nice and thin. Try not to overbrush, as the paint from the brush can leave lines and stain your vinyl. Now, using the sponge with paint already applied, randomly pounce gently all over the head to spread the paint evenly. Remember to keep your blue-purple wash thin so your mix doesn't stain your vinyl. It is always best to add more thin layers than one thick layer. Just like you did the limbs, you want to remove any paint buildup from the creases around the eyes, nose and mouth. Gently pounce over any areas that have any paint buildup. I pay a lot of attention to the creases on the face, as you don't want any build-up in the corners of the eyes or mouth. Behind the ears is also a place that will need pouncing, so don't forget behind the ears. Using your dry 3/4 maxi mop brush, gently pounce over any areas and creases that have any excess paint buildup. You have now completed the neutralizing blue-purple wash technique on your yellow-orange vinyl reborn doll kit. You will need to heat set the paint permanently by baking the doll kit in a conventional home oven at 130 degrees Celsius for around 9 minutes. Remember to wait until thinners have completely dried before baking. Place all your doll parts onto a cookie tray that is lined with a white, no-pattern hand towel. If you feel you need another layer of blue-purple wash to get a more neutralized colour, simply repeat this technique again until you're happy with the base colour you achieve.